Let's hear from Chris Getz, the Michigan man, on an update on where the Dylan Cease trade market currently stands.
I think, certainly going into the offseason with trying to certainly get our club in a much better place than where it's been here recently. We had to be open-minded with perhaps making some trades. Obviously, we had the Aaron Bummer deal, was able to trade for Max Stassi, and have been open-minded with other players on the roster because I felt like that was the right thing to do. We've had conversations about Dylan Cease, but I also know that we're not going to move a player like Dylan or anyone else unless we feel like we're going to benefit. So it's got to be a right fit for certainly all parties. A lot of these conversations are ongoing. There's a lot that goes into any sort of trade transaction. There's a lot of conversations, build up, research, and obviously getting it to the finish line. And, as part of the offseason, we'll continue to do that to find ways to get our club better.
Vinny Duber.
Hey, Chris, when you talk about something that benefits you guys, whether it's with Dylan or in any hypothetical trade, what are you guys kind of looking to do? I mean, is this a long-term benefit? Is it types of players who can help you more immediately, or is it guys that maybe go down in the farm system and a couple of years from now are looking like, maybe cornerstones of what you're building for the future?
Quite honestly, all of the above. I mean, for sustainability, it's important to if you're able to find a trade that you want it to help you both in the short term and long term. So there could be players that go to our minor league system, certainly could help our major league club. You certainly want this to be a balancing attack, and so you hope that you're able to benefit immediately. Sometimes that's not the case. We're looking for ways to get better, both short term and long term.
Chris, how does the free agent pitching market impact talks about Cease? And does it just make the most sense for you to wait for Snell, Montgomery, and Imanaga to sign, so therefore you have a captive audience for the other 29 teams or 26 or 27 teams that don't sign one of those three?
It's tough to tell when it comes to whether it be a Cease market or any other players market. We're certainly not operating in a vacuum. Some teams have a little bit more financial flexibility than others. All it takes is one team to want to jump out perhaps and get a deal done. And in the case of Dylan, I don't think that there's a club out there that hasn't expressed some level of interest in him, and all of their situations are different. So when you bring up some of these higher profile players and the impact that it may have on Dylan or others, I think that it applies to some, but not all. Every organization has different types of players. Those players, how do they apply to your club? Those are all different factors that go into making a decision. If we feel like there's a fit that improves our club, we'll certainly strongly consider it. Certainly that hasn't happened at this point.
So as far as Cease goes, you talked to us at the winter meetings about how, you're on the same page with him and he's a true professional that understands the situation. But when it goes on and on like this, and I'm not saying the White Sox have created it, it's more of a media function. Do you have to continue to check in with him and talk to him about where his head's at and how he's preparing for the offseason, regardless of the rumors?
Yeah, we've continually spoken to Dylan. He's got a very strong relationship with Ethan Katz, Pedro, and is building a relationship with Brian Bannister, one of our new hires. So, and it's always been very consistent with Dylan. He's always preparing for what's in front of him. I will say he's fairly unique in how he does not get distracted, and that's what makes him a special pitcher and a pitcher that could pitch for any club in any city. That's why his value is so high. So he's a human being, so you certainly want to treat him that way. Every player deserves that respect, and we do the best we can to provide clarity and comfort as he kind of works through this process.
Hey, Chris, with a player such as Dylan or anybody else, as you go into the season, or if you go into the season and approach the trade deadline, in 2024, how do you sort of gauge the risks that are involved there as to what the market might be, as to things that can happen to players and things like that? How do you sort of throw those balls in the air and come up with a with a plan?
We've got to understand, the player you're considering, you're talking about. I mean that from a player that's wearing a White Sox uniform. What's the makeup of the player? What's the health of the player? What's the workload look like? So we can kind of project into the future. There's certainly trades in the past have set precedent, whether it be off-season trades and mid-season trades. Those are certainly factors. It's ever evolving though in terms of the urgency of other clubs, and it could be in an off season, it could be at the deadline, it could be in May. There's just so many different factors when you're talking about 29 other clubs, but we've got a strong front office, a coaching staff. We're regularly communicating with other clubs and certainly collaborating amongst ourselves. So utilize the resources you have to make sound decisions. Is it going to be perfect? It's certainly hard to be, and I don't expect it to be, but you try to put yourself in a position to make a sound decision.
Hey, Chris, you mentioned both Maldonado and Max there. Just what did you like about both those fits behind the plate for you?
Well, they're two catchers that have had success in this game. Veteran types. They're known for the receiving, their game planning, their throwing, they're building a rapport with our catchers. Going back to wanting to build the theme of improving our defense, it starts with certainly run prevention. And when it comes to run prevention, certainly the pitcher has the most control over it. I would say that the player on the field that has the second most control is the catcher. So both highly respected players within our game. They understand what it takes to be successful at the major league level. Maldonado, is a recent World Series winner, has been on a lot of successful clubs. Most importantly, to have them come in together, work together with some of our arms and other teammates. We look forward to seeing their work within our clubhouse, and I think we're going to benefit from that.
And then likewise with Flexen and Hill as well. Just what were the thought process behind those signings as well?
So when we go through our assessments for arms that we feel like are that can help our club, going back to even Eric Fetty, using Brian Bannister and kind of our acquisition team, we try to identify some things in their arsenal, or it could be a mechanic that we feel like we can bring those players in here, improve them, and get them out there and be productive major league players. We both identified some low-hanging fruit, so to speak, when it comes to Tim Hill and Chris Flexen to come here, get those guys back on track. There was an injury with Tim Hill that he had taken care of this past offseason, so he'll be fully healthy come spring training. And Chris Flexen, his pitch attack, some mechanical adjustments needed to be made. We're on the same page and look forward to watching that play out.
Hey, Chris, congrats on your Wolverines.
Thank you, Chuck.
It's actually two questions. One's a follow-up with Maldonado. Obviously, he's got his history. He's for what he's done on the field, off the field, in the clubhouse. And you look at the stats, just the stats of him defensively last season. How did you interpret what he was bringing on the field and how the stats kind of just took a nosedive? I know stats aren't everything, but how did you guys kind of comprehend what was happening and why you felt like he can still be that catcher who he's been in the past?
Well, the best indicator of what the player is going to be is based on what they've done in the past, and he's got a long track record of being successful back there. There were some physical limitations that affected some of the framing numbers or the blocking, but we're talking about a guy that knows how to prepare. He knows the adjustments that need to be made. He knows how to communicate well with pitchers. So, with all those different factors, we felt like this was a very sound decision with what we're trying to accomplish. And quite honestly, with where he's at in his career, having Max here as well, and so they can kind of feed off of each other with where they're at in their careers, felt like it was a wise decision too.
And my other question, you've addressed a lot of with the defense and the pitching staff. Where are you right now with offense and trying to improve the offense for next year?
Well, next week we'll start with we're going to be in Arizona. We're having a hitter summit with everyone that's part of hitting, whether it be on the acquisition front, development front, coaching front, and look forward to getting everyone out there and establishing what we're going to be moving forward. I think that there's some handedness issues that can be addressed. But it starts with putting together quality at bats, understanding certain situations. And I don't mean just situational hitting, how you're going to be how you're being attacked at the 0-0 count, 0-1 count, 1-1 count. Those are adjusting to the situations in front of a player, and they need to understand the value of having that awareness and carrying out that plan at a consistent basis, and being even keeled and not getting too high when things are going well and too low when there are struggles. So first and foremost, we wanted to improve the defense to make a cleaner style of baseball. And, we've got some highly skilled offensive players in Louis Robert, Eloy Jimenez. Yohan Moncada has been an impactful offensive player. We know what Andrew Vaughn is capable of doing. Paul DeYoung has had very good offensive years. So we've got some pieces in there that certainly we certainly know what they're capable of doing. Now it's a matter of pulling out the positives in their game.
Chris, just building off of that, what sort of confidence do you have in kind of, I guess, the infrastructure that you guys are putting together here to turn a lot of those guys who didn't have very good offensive seasons a year ago, or in some of the cases of some of the guys you brought aboard, the last few years, what sort of confidence level do you have that the offense is going to be improved, even if you're not necessarily going out and getting guys who have the biggest offensive numbers?
Yeah, it starts with the education to our players. You educate them, you hold them accountable. You make sure that they're prepared to go out there and fight on a daily basis. They got to know the pitchers that they're facing. I do feel like the system is going to be strong in place. Marcus Thames is very experienced with all different types of hitters, experience levels at his various stops. Mike Tozar has a strong connection with some of the players that are already in house. We've brought others around that are going to be part of the supporting cast as well. So I feel pretty good about where we're headed. Are we where we need to be? Of course not. But I do feel like we've got the makings to be more successful than we've been in the past.
Kind of in a similar vein, a lot of the moves that you've made so far this winter, bringing in veteran players on short-term deals. You've talked about having, both a short and long-term plan. How do you kind of feel that you've addressed kind of that long-term plan in what you've done so far this offseason?
Well, some of the shorter-term deals, allow you to make sure that minor league players are developing at the right pace, so they're not asked to do something that they're perhaps not prepared to do. There is an impact with those veteran players to help some of those minor league players when they break into the big leagues. And then also with some of the shorter term deals, you've got guys that have the potential to perhaps get back on track and reestablish what they're able to do at the major league level. And there's different ways to spin some benefits off of that too. So we're looking for players that understand how to play the game, create a cohesive group that enjoy getting together on a nightly basis or daily basis to go out there and win baseball games. And foundationally, I feel like we're in a good spot to do that.
Hey, Chris, what do you see? I know it's still 5 weeks till spring training, but what do you kind of see as Garrett Crochet's role to start off with, and what are the reports you're getting on him from Arizona during the offseason?
The feedback on Garrett's been very positive, and he's preparing this season to be a starter. That's something he certainly has done in the past. He's got the weapons to do so. He's had some health hiccups along the way. Physically, he's in a very good spot. At the end of the season and continue to the off season, we've had continue to have conversations with what the expectations are. Garrett, how do you see yourself? Well, this is how we get there. He believes he can be a starter. We've seen him be a starter in the past. And so we're going to go into spring prepared to stretch him out, and we'll make adjustments along the way if need be.
So are you saying you look at him as a possible part of the rotation at the outset, or as the season goes on, the target is to become a starter?
Well, he hasn't started in a couple of years.
Yeah.
So it's going to take a little bit of time to appropriately stretch him out. But we're going in with the intention for him to be a starter in 2024.
Chris, health has been such a storyline with this team over the last few years. Since taking over, have you had any sort of dramatic ideas in terms of keeping some of the guys that have had some perennial injuries a little bit more healthy?
Well, it starts with the expectation to stay healthy. And I know that's kind of a simple kind of statement, but the expectation is to play on a daily basis. And with that mindset, you then learn how to prepare to play on a daily basis. So it starts with the messaging, whether it be for myself, the coaching staff, the training staff, the strength and conditioning staff, and it breathes itself throughout the organization and certainly at the major league level. So now we're not going to do anything reckless by any stretch. We're paying attention to where everyone's bodies are, making sure they do what they need to do to prepare, to put themselves in a position to maintain their health and maintain their strength throughout the season. So, it's not a perfect science. Certainly when it comes to workload on the pitching front, you need to make sound decisions, and the same thing goes on the position player front. But a lot of it is not only clinically, physically, when you have your hands on these players, where their body's at, but also verbally, how they're communicating to you and how we're communicating to them to keep them on the field.
Hey, Chris, who is in right field? Who is at the top of your depth chart right now?
That hasn't been established yet. It really hasn't. Whether there are internal options. We've signed some players to NRIs. We've got some internal candidates, but certainly not ready to establish who's going to be in right field at this point.
Are you looking to add there yet, or do you like the alternatives that you have right now?
Yeah, we're looking to add. We are.
One of those other roster moves that you made, Cosine. Just what was the work behind adding him to the mix, and what do you like about him as well?
Well, he was an international signing recently, and he's someone that we've been tracking for years, and feel like he's a guy that can be a future starter for us at some point. We're not there. There's going to be more development time, but he's certainly a player that we look forward to continuing his development.
Chris, do you see Martin and Max as your numbers 1 and 2 catchers right now? I know you guys were very complimentary about Corey Lee at the end of last season. Are the veteran guys kind of the 1-2 for you guys going into spring?
Yeah, we expect those two catchers to be on our major league club, and obviously Corey, we feel very strongly about what he's capable of doing on the defensive side. We have seen stretches of offensive production, and we're going to work on him getting as consistent as possible to make him as well-rounded as possible to help us win some more baseball games.
And then similarly, when it comes to Flexen, is he a guy that you are, projecting to be in the rotation come opening day, or is he just kind of one more of the mix of guys that you have in the organization right now?
The expectation is for him to be in the rotation and provide starter innings for us this year.
We all silly like the mayor.